beautiful Tuesday morning. It is a great day. We're rising and shining all the way from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. My name is Uyai Aneka, and this is Rise and Shine. We apologize for coming behind schedule.
And I am Francis Oyemaide. Glad to have you joined us. Of course, it's Tuesday, another day to work, set goals, and get to tick off these boxes by the time we get to the weekend. And finally, of course, in a few more days, we'll be wrapping up the month of November, ushering in the month of December. I'd like to believe you're ready and you are as well prepared for the festivities that's coming. But of course, this is Rise and Shine, and we'll be here to talk Nigeria, Africa, and of course, things happening on the global stage.
Of course, some of the conversations that would have on Rise and Shine this morning include the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, of course, who was at the G20 summit, has moved to woo investors, into Nigeria. Of course, we also see that the FAAC is meeting over multiple taxation. These are some of the things that the president has been able to bring to bear for us. One of the strongest conversation is the sacking of the Plateau State governor, Mutfwang, by the appeal court. Of course, we've also continued to see a lot of criticism coming out for the judgment, sacking Mutfwang, but of course, mostly from the People's Democratic Party. We also see for Nayeti is calling for the creation of a special squadron for security of mining sites. One of the strongest conversations we've had in Nigeria is to diversify our earnings away from oil and gas, and some of the other sectors that the touchlight has come on in Nigeria is, mining sector in Nigeria. We also see here that a lot of conversations are going on around climate change the world over. In South Africa this week, it has been said that an unprecedented heat wave is going to be hitting. We also see that in Nigeria, a report from the WCD is saying that climate change is currently affecting about 100 million Nigerian children, and that's a really, really serious one this morning. We also see that there's a move at this time, Francis, at the end of, as we're climbing down into the holiday for tankers drivers strike. That's going to be dangerous if at all that comes up. Many more conversation are some of the things that we're going to be talking about on Rise and Shine this morning. I would always love to encourage you, be a part of the conversation, take advantage of social media platforms, all of which you can find at SpectrumTv Live. Our phone lines are usually displayed in the course of the program. Call in, send in your concerns, your criticism. Let's get your thoughts on what's happening in the country. That's the rundown of what we have. We'll get straight into our flash news. Okay, at this point, we'll just get straight to the top of the conversation. We'll start out with the fact that this report on children being affected by 100 million children in Nigeria being affected by what do we call now, by climate change, is a rather serious one. We see that not less than 113,730,000 Nigerian children, representing 51% of the 223 million people in Nigeria, are disproportionately affected by climate change. Of course, this is something that the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has revealed, paying attention to, the livelihood of children in Nigeria. Now, we see the climate landscape analysis for children in Nigeria highlighting key climate risk to children and providing an overview of multi-sectoral climate mitigation and adaptation actions that UNICEF intends to implement in Nigeria between 2023 and 2027. Of course, we've continued to have very strong conversations around what nations of the world, especially in Africa, can do to mitigate the level of climate change that we are experiencing. Some of the natural disasters occurring around the world is as a result of climate change, and in Nigeria, over 100 million children are currently being affected. When you say 100 million children are being affected, what are the kinds of resultant, what are the consequences of these, dangers that they have faced? So we are seeing that malignant diseases, all kinds of issues our children are susceptible to, things that impede their normal growth, is also part of the results of the things that they experience. Now, how does climate change affects the water that they drink, affects the air that they breathe. It's affecting the quality of food that we have. So we have a lot of children in Nigeria also that UNICEF has reported are strongly suffering malnutrition at this time. Basically, the first impact of climate change is on the health of the children. Now, this is just a review done for the children. We cannot start talking about the numbers of adults that climate change is affecting. How healthy is our environment at the moment? We're talking gas emissions. We are talking about, improper disposal of chemical produce in the country. A lot of things that are building on to destroy the stratosphere. But our concern this morning is how it is, first of all, directly affecting millions and millions of our children in Nigeria.
Well, of course, the issue of climate change has been on for the longest. I mean, it's one conversation that we cannot have enough of it until the world gets to converge together. It remains committed and, of course, take the necessary actions that are needed to safeguard the planet. There's been one conversation about what human beings are doing the world over, companies are doing the world over, which is consistently, depleting the ozone layer and, of course, causing harm to the planet. We've seen in recent times conversations being intensified, nations of the world, particularly the developed countries, being called to be a lot more deliberate and intentional in terms of funding and investment in issues surrounding climate change. Of course, we've also seen the move from, gas emission to cleaner energy that will, to the larger extent, also help. Recently, we've seen, I think Times Magazine giving awards and recognizing people who have been instrumental to actions that are in the interest of protecting the climate. We've seen people taking massive strides of planting trees. We've seen, countries of the world taking the initiative of prioritizing cleaner energy, gradually moving from fossil fuel to gas to other, greener energy system or alternative energy system that will not cause more danger or harm to the environment. But of course, apart from, I think this is the first time I'm coming across an analysis that has to do with children, particularly in Nigeria, the impact of, the climate change and all of the things happening as far as climate is concerned and what that means for Nigerian children. We've also heard in recent times, there have been a lot of conversation about the impact of climate change on the girl child, the women and their health. Now we're having about children. This one specifically to Nigeria. Well, it further goes to add to the different burdens that Nigeria is leading in the cause as far as health is concerned. And this again draws the attention of government, or should draw the attention of government to issues of grave concern, which is the health sector. I know the federal government has declared a state of emergency as far as the Nigerian health sector is concerned, but there are certain questions, certain concerns that Nigerians have. How long is it going to take for the emergency that has been declared, the steps, the modalities put in place to yield the desired result? I mean, the federal government has also declared its intention and commitment to, invest heavily in the health sector, from primary health facilities to, tertiary health institutions across the respective states of the federation. But that is what it is at this moment, commitment on the part of the government. No blueprint has been exposed to Nigerians. No modalities or step-by-step actions has also been spoken about by the federal government. But be that as it may, Nigerians expect that the statement and the commitment stated by the federal government would be, followed through to the later. But we move away from, talking about the federal government to also looking at what we as individuals ought to do. I mean, a lot of people are still involved in a lot of practices that are anti-climate health. And as long as we as individuals do not also get to understand that these small, seemingly insignificant things that we do in our backyard also contributes to the boiling of, the ozone layer, to the boiling of the planet at this point in time, then we are going to keep doing that. Take, for instance, the simplest thing as bush burning. No matter how much you talk, planting seasons are around, a lot of people are still going to take to bush burning. And for them, they believe that, this is the best way. I mean, some persons will still argue with you that, I mean, our fathers used to, practice these and they had good harvest. So why can't we continue practicing it, just to maintain that good harvest? And sometimes regardless of the bush burning, they still have very horrible harvests, but still unable to learn the lesson. So it's a call for action, it's a call for stricter implementation of policies surrounding climate change, is a call for individual and collective responsibility, is a call for politicians to move away from playing politics when it comes to issues of climate change. And then, of course, the minders of the system should also prioritize funding. I know a lot of NGOs, particularly from the young folks, the younger generation, are coming up here and there, preaching the message on the need for us to protect and safeguard the environment and Mother Earth. If we all collectively take the actions that is desired and that is required of us, if governments of the world continue to invest and resist the urge or the temptation to play politics with these issues, then hopefully we'll get to that point. But then parents also have a role to play in looking out for their children. Some parents do not pay attention to the nutritional intake of their children. Parents don't take time to look at the diet makeup of their children, except for a few families who are maybe well-to-do. But the average Nigerian, home does not, pay attention to those things. And sometimes the excuse would be, oh, poverty. The excuse would be, oh, we don't have that kind of money to begin to look into dieting. Whatever the child sees, the child eats. But, the issue of dieting, dietitians will tell you, is as simple as making sure that at every point in time, whatever meal you're giving to that child, it's balanced. You don't necessarily need to rob a bank, to make sure that happens. So we do hope that we get to prioritize the actions that needs to be done for us to achieve, the desired results.
Well, we do hope so. And wash issues also, open defecation is part of the problems that's building up to climate change, because all of those wash initiatives is affecting running, this disease from waste, from water bodies and all of that, and our children are the first hit. So it's more like when we, do these kinds of awareness, let people know that open defecation is a problem. When you just come outside anywhere you like, I think one of the statistics that I saw one time put Lokoja very up there on the map, where people just by the riverside all around there, people just want to defecate and do all kinds of things, but it is running in the water body. The fish that we are taking out of sea, the vegetable and all of those kind of things is affected because it's all coming back into the mouth. And so it's necessary for us to become more proactive with how healthy our environment is, whatever the investment is that you can make before we get to seeing dividends of government from our state governments or the federal government or what the health ministries are doing. Let us as individuals first of all take responsibility for our health. Let parents take responsibility for the health of their children. This is very, very important. Watch out if as much as possible. I think some of the basic things that we're taught in primary and secondary school: boil your drinking water, because a lot of times the sources of water that we're drinking is not clean, it's not healthy. The healthiest form right now is just for you to boil your water if you cannot afford all those other distillating things that can help with water around you. So UNICEF is saying about 100 million children are affected by climate change, and the resultant effect cuts across all kinds of things. That before there used to be diseases that when you hear they say it's only the old people, but now we're finding out that there are children that are affected with all kinds of diseases. But we're going to move away from that particular report now by UNICEF this morning and look at that very next flash story. Of course, we are seeing that the Nigerian Union of Petroleum Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, has asked security operatives to apprehend those spreading rumors of planned industrial action by members of the Petroleum Tankers Drivers and PTD branch of the union. Now, NUPENG dismissed insinuation of planned protests by tanker drivers, warning that such speculation was capable of causing artificial fuel scarcity across the country. We know very well that once we begin to glide down to the end of the year like this, it looks like it has become a norm for Nigerians to just expect that, first of all, fuel might be scarce, and now we are also seeing this one that is unexplainable, why naira is scarce. At least for one, we know that reportedly in Akwa Ibom, we are very, very sure that cash is scarce. More like when you get to the banking halls, the off-the-counter transactions can only pay you to a certain amount of money. When you now come to the point of sale, operators, some of them don't even have money. So there's some form of petroleum tanker drivers in Nigeria, speculations of a strike action. Now, if you say there are speculations of a strike action, what exactly will be causing them to go on strike action? We know that the price and cost of everything in Nigeria has gone up, but what will be the specific reason? But the General Secretary of the Union, Afolabi Olawale, I beg your pardon, is saying that this is basically a rumor that must be discountenanced by the public. Of course, he's saying that there are perpetrators, some desperate individuals. They're trying to create panic in the public so that people can, engage in panic buying and all kinds of other things, which at the end of the day, you're going to see some, filling stations that without the advice of anybody, they will stop selling fuel, and before we may be having a serious crisis in our hand. So this is more like an awareness call. The Nupeng is saying they are not going on any kind of strike, and they're saying the PTD, the Petrol Tanker Drivers Association under Nupeng, is not planning to go on any kind of strike action, as this is going to cause a problem. But they're basically saying the rumors and the insinuation going around can cause some kind of artificial scarcity with petroleum products around the country.
Well, when it comes to the festive period, Nigerians have been used to incidences of strike, hiking the petroleum product prices. Nigerians have been used to the different antics that have been employed by individuals, people within the petroleum, downstream sector, as far as making extra gains, making extra profit is concerned. But of course, most persons would tell you, when it comes to rumors and speculations, when it comes to strike, there's literally no point in Nigeria when you get to hear the speculations and this rumor being peddled that you don't wake up sooner or later for to witness an industrial action happening. The Nigerian Petroleum Company, NNPCL, the federal government, the authorities in the Petroleum Regulatory Authority, everyone that is involved in that subsector needs to rise up to the responsibility, because at this point in Nigeria, we're looking at fuel being sold. I think as of yesterday, I bought fuel at 640 naira at one filling station, and then I bought at 700 at another filling station. So that is like 60 naira price disparity in one state. And then it raises the question, why would one filling station sell fuel at 640 naira and another is selling at 700 naira? It raises the question, what are the regulatory agencies in the sector doing? Because we should be able to normalize the price. We're talking of these persons, these filling stations in Akwa Ibom. Everybody takes fuel from the same location. Wherever it is, whether from Port Harcourt or from Rivers or from Cross River State, you bring those things down to Akwa Ibom. Whichever way you went to, it's the same route, it's the same channel. But people are selling with those price disparity. In fact, I'm told in some places it is getting to about 750 in Akwa Ibom. I remember having conversations on a WhatsApp forum, and people are like, oh, if you come to Esreke, that's 640, 700 you're talking about in Uyo. It is higher than that in Esreke, it is higher than that in Eket, it's higher than that in Oron. And then you ask this question, why do we have the price disparity, even when these products are sold at the same lifting prices for every person who is involved in, the petroleum sector? It raises a whole lot of concerns, and it's back for the answer what the regulatory authorities and the monitoring agencies of government are doing as far as, the petroleum product prices are concerned. And if we do not have the authorities rising to checkmate the activities of these marketers, then of course, at this very critical time, that Nigerians are struggling and grappling with the effects of the the removal of fuel subsidy and its attendant impact, we might be having fuel sold at 1,000 naira before we get to the festive period. And if that should happen, it definitely means a lot of families will not be able to celebrate the Christmas season, let alone get prepared for the new year that is going to come in just about a couple of more days left for the month, the year of 2023 to wrap up. So it's a call on President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, it's a call on the Minister of Petroleum Resources, a call on Mele Kyari and every other person within the sector at the federal level and back in the states, the respective states of the Federation. It is also an urgent call, a call to service, a call to duty for us to look into this area. I know that at some point within the course of the year, we had monitoring teams going out to enforce, strict compliance with the sales of petroleum products. Where are those monitoring teams across the states of the Federation today? This is the time that we need to monitor and ensure strict compliance so Nigerians don't get so changed. Before you know it, the cost of transportation is already high. But if we don't further look into this, I think as of yesterday, a place that I think Ikorekpene Road, for instance, in Akwa Ibom, Ikorekpene Road from Plaza to Itam Junction, that used to be about 100 naira within the hike of this fuel. Now, as of yesterday, was 150 naira. And what was this excuse the bus drivers were given? Oh, we're no longer buying fuel at 600, 620 naira. We're buying fuel at 700 naira. So you don't expect us to still collect the same amount of money. And then, of course, it takes a mind back to the conversation of people trekking longer distances and all of the attendant impact that will come as a result of that.
Well, there's a lot to worry about at this time, but it's important that we see the likes of Nupeng, and just like they have reiterated their very strong commitment to making sure that Nigerians are not forced into any kind of difficult position again because of the choices of workers within their union. Of course, they have reiterated the fact that petroleum tanker drivers are very dedicated to give service delivery to the country. But just rightly, as Francis said, whatever may be the underlying issues currently going on in that sector, the likes of NNPC, like every now and then when we have conversations around NNPCL, it gives a headache. It just leaves you with a headache because you keep wondering what exactly are these people doing. But then it is important that if there are any sublime issues that have possibly been submitted by Nupeng to the NNPCL and the ministries involved in the petroleum sector, let it be reviewed. Just like Francis said, there is no smoke without fire. Just in case this is like a warning conversation that is going on now, are there attendant issues that have been submitted by Nupeng or any other agencies in that petroleum sector? Let it be squarely looked into. We know that in years past, at this time when it comes into the ember period close to the holidays, usually we would hear NNPC declaring how much reservation of petroleum products that we have in the country, just so that Nigerians know that at no point are we going to be running into a scarcity when the holidays come. But this is a warning. There is no impending strike whatsoever by the Petroleum Tankers Drivers Association. So let's know how it is happening in your region. Are the fuel tankers still coming into your state and your region? And how much are you getting fuel? Well, we know that somewhat in Akwa Ibom State, most of the places currently 700 naira. But the biggest question is, where are the regulatory agencies that are meant to make sure that these prices are pegged at a certain fee? I mean, not everybody can wait to go and do that queue at an NNPC station just to get at the price of which NNPC sales. So this is a problem. It is affecting cost of food, it is affecting cost of transportation and everything. It is putting Nigerians at a risk. Let us also look at the fact that the weather condition in the country has currently changed. We're coming into that very strong heat season. So having too many people working under the sun, we're going to be fighting issues of dehydration and sudden venting spills. So if we have a system where, first of all, let's also realize the fact that Nigeria is not giving us quality electricity in the country. So we need to see how people can fill their generating plants and regulate the temperature of their homes or office spaces, or people working just within the distances they need to walk, not that you're walking elongated distances because you cannot afford transportation. This is still calling on the federal government and the state government to do a lot. What of these promises of CNG buses? One of the promises was that when the CNG buses come, it is going to subsidize transportation fare for citizens. How hasn't it arrived until now? There's still lots of questions. We just keep having questions upon questions for the federal government, some of which we find answers, some of which the answers are not very, very far-reaching. But we're going to take our very last flash story for this morning. We're seeing that NIET is calling for a creation of a special squadron for security of mining sites. Of course, we love to bring you information across all the spheres and sectors of things happening in Nigeria so that you are kept abreast as to where exactly policies are going, where exactly the thoughts of the federal government is going with certain issues. But the executive secretary of the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, Dr. Ogbonnaya Orji, has called for the creation of a special squadron to ward off threat and insecurity at various mining sites in Nigeria and elsewhere in West Africa, basically. Now, Orji spoke during the keynote address at the gathering of stakeholders from different mining communities in West Africa, deliberating and aiming at finding solutions to the common challenges confronting mining activities in the region. We know that there are certain nations in Africa that are really, really strong, with regards to mining. South Africa is one of those strongest hubs. South Africa churns out the highest quantity of gold in the world, so that is a lot of mining activity going on there. And in recent times we've also heard of all kinds of mining accidents and all of those things, so it's all embedded in the insecurity that they are talking about, and other factors that could help that particular sector to thrive. When you have incessant accidents happening at mining site, that is a threat to the sustenance of that particular sector. But of course, this is a serious call. Of course, we see that Africa is blessed with abundance of mineral resources ranging from gold and diamonds to oil and gas. Of course, these resources hold the promise of transformation, the potential to elevate the lives of people. We need to also see how African leaders and Africans can begin to leverage on the amount of wealth that we have as a people to actually transform our lives within the region.
Well, when you talk about transforming our lives, I think this morning, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu says that Nigeria is currently leading African countries when it comes to seeking investment in the continent, and it raises some very salient questions. One, the federal government of Nigeria is pressing very hard at this point to drive foreign direct investment. Two, the president is talking too much about the reforms being made in the business environment to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. But of course, you're also raising questions to the deals that have been signed so far by the President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's led federal government. Of course, that also would take our minds to the timeline that this project, this investment will come into Nigeria and will yield the desired impact. You're talking about employment, you're talking about revamping the economy, you're talking about reducing the poverty index of the country, you're talking about different issues that will come as the repercussion effect of having this foreign direct investment. But of course, for this investment to come into the country, apart from the reforms being made in the business environment, the question of security is the most important and the most critical. We've seen in recent times, or in not too long period, especially during the time of President Muhammadu Buhari, companies leaving Nigeria in their droves to other African countries because of unfriendly business environment, because of the insecurity currently being experienced in Nigeria. So setting up a special squad will go in different ways for Nigerians. First and foremost, remember, at this point in time, we've had different state government and even the federal government. The Inspector General of Police, Egbetekun, had spoken in the direction of favoring the creation of state police to further help in the security of the country. And also there have been conversations about neighborhood watch, or a collaboration between the state police, the police that is run by the current Nigerian police force, and of course special marshals recruited by state. Let's talk for Akwa Ibom, for instance, with the creation of the Ministry of Internal Security. There have been plans and grounds to recruit able-bodied men from the respective communities, get them trained properly in the issue of community policing, and then have them work in partnership with the Nigerian police force to ensure security across the respective wards, local government areas in the state. And there have been those conversations outside of Akwa Ibom in other states. And so at this point in time, many people will tell you, if you're advocating for setting up of a special decks or a special squad to handle insecurity, then you'll be calling for too many bodies to be created. And the more bodies you have, then you're going to end up creating another line of problems for the Nigerian government, because we're already seeing a lot of fracas between different armed forces in the country. We cannot forget in a hurry instances between the Nigerian police force and the military, instances within the Nigerian men of the Nigerian correctional facilities and the DSS. We've had all of those incidences happening in the country. So when you begin to talk about community police, you're having special marshals in the community, and then you're soliciting for the creation of a special squad just to fight insecurity. Now you're going to have the problem, face the problem, or be faced with the problem of defining what you are terming by insecurity. Because to some persons, it could be banditry, in other places, cattle rustlers, in other places, terrorism, and of course, the list keeps going on and on. So when you talk about this special squad, all of them goes down to one center focus, that is fighting insecurity, that is protecting the lives and properties of Nigerians, okay, and the Nigerian people. So it's going to be a lot more confusing, a lot more tasking, and we might be having these agencies coming at each other over clash responsibilities.
Multiplicity of roles.
Exactly. So somebody will say, oh, we were created to handle this, so this should not fall within your jurisdiction. And before you know it, instead of fighting the insecurity, they'll be fighting themselves and further, dragging the Nigerian people down the line with them. So it is better for us to focus as a country, know that if we want to have, apart from the Nigerian police force, we want to go into state police, then let's go into state police and have the respective states of the federation have their state police body properly formulated, properly registered, everything properly documented, properly identified across board. So if you're stepping in to Akwa Ibom State, for instance, the Akwa Ibom State Police Command, or the Akwa Ibom State Internal Police Service is in existence, and this is their uniform, this is their logo, this is what you identify them with. You go to Cross River, you go to Rivers, you go to Anambra, you go to Imo, you go to Kano, Kaduna, whichever state you step into, once that is done, you can easily identify people who are men and women of the state police, men and women of the Nigerian police force, and then be able to relate with them. But if we take a move from that and begin to create multiple agencies to tackle insecurity, it's going to be a lot more tasking. And then, of course, you'll also be looking at the issue of funding. And of course, that is no mean feat to fund, ammunition, to fund training and retraining, payment of salaries. I mean, some state governments are already crying so much when it comes to, the wage award that has been introduced just for the next couple of months to, cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. So it's a lot. It's going to be a lot too burdensome on the respective governments. A lot of Nigerians would say, let's focus on the Nigerian police force, and if we must, then have a state police unit.
Well, lots of, salient issues that you have raised, the multiplicity of job roles, and why are we always looking at creating another subcommittee to take care of issues that we already have an overall house to do? How is this going to affect the budget of the sector? But then again, we're also looking at security of the host communities for these natural resources. When we have people coming to exploit them, the end game is the fact that people living in these host communities are oftentimes affected by insecurity and other attendance results of people coming in to illegally mine in their cities. But it's a strong call. We see Alake, who is the Minister for mining, mineral resources in Nigeria, saying that, of course, they will continue to collaborate with the federal government to bring the best possible business investments into the sector, and also ensure that security of mining and miners in Nigeria is upended. But we'll move on to our major stories this morning.
Rise and shine. Rise and shine. Rise and shine.
Of course, it's still Rise and Shine, and we're beaming live from you, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, and this is Talking Nigeria and Africa, and of course the world as a global village and things happening. We head to a very first major story this morning, and we're talking from the National Assembly, where the House of Representatives has summoned 83 ministers, departments, and agencies of federal government as it begins an investigation into the alleged mismanagement of over 447.6 billion naira COVID-19 intervention fund from 2020 to 2022. Of course, according to reports, as at the last time, 22 of the MDAs got about 447.6 billion naira COVID-19 funds in 2020 alone, which implies that COVID-19 intervention fund from 2020 to 2022 was way higher than the 447.6 billion received by less than half the number of MDAs invited by the House of Representatives for the probe, which is slated for commencement from November 27, 2023 and the end of December 4. That's spanning a period of 1 week, 27 to 4th of December. Of course, the Ministries of Agriculture, Food Security, Communications and Digital Economy, Federal Road Maintenance Agency and scores of other ministries and departments have been invited in an invitation issued by the chairman of the committee and a member representing Ede North and Ede South Federal Constituency in Osun State, Bamidele Salam. Of course, the latest dated November 20th, 2023. The lawmaker asks all the MDAs to be represented by their chief accounting officers, head of finance, head of procurement, and any other relevant officer to defend the expenditure contained in their various submissions. Yeah, this is where the drama is going to begin to unfold. And I think for the while now, the House of Assembly, the National Assembly, have been making moves to probe different, funding. We saw the N-Power that was being suspended. We're yet to see the outcome of that probe. Nigerians are eagerly waiting for it, especially as the announcement came that, the federal government is going to begin the feeding of, thousands of children in the northern part of the country. We're also looking at the feeding of school children, the school children feeding program, which of course has also been widely criticized. And on the wake of the N-Power being investigated, Nigerians were calling for the school feeding program to also be looked into. Now we're talking about COVID-19. Nigerians cannot forget in a hurry what transpired. I mean, with all of the drama, with all of the discoveries that happened after the COVID-19, food stocked away by government in their respective states, things that were meant for the Nigerian people to cushion the effects of that time didn't get to the people, just like we've seen the palliative that was recently released by the federal government to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal. So a lot of drama is being expected by Nigerians. But then there is another question here. Remember, in recent times, it literally seems like when the National Assembly invite ministries, departments, and agencies, the top men and people who are called to come answer questions, find a way to shy away from that responsibility. And so far, apart from the comment coming from the Senate President that henceforth, government workers, appointees who do not show up for such summons or invitations would definitely face the full wrath of the law. Nigerians wait to see how this investigation is going to spiral out, because we'd like to know exactly what happened with the funds that were given to Nigerians to the different ministries during that period.
It's a big question, but we are looking at a probe of 447 billion naira. That's a lot of money, Francis, sent in by donor agencies nationally and internationally to help Nigerians to traverse that whole season of COVID-19. We know that oftentimes, first of all, it will sound like a rumor, or the federal government is giving a certain kind of grant, certain kinds of monies are being released to people. I remember vividly during that COVID-19 period, there were some people that got some funds, and then others that did not even have an idea that these monies were moving around. But to the tune of 447 billion naira, there are people in these parastatals that literally sat on these monies because what kind of incentive? Let's go all the way to the United States of America. When this issue of COVID-19 happened, once the lockdown was heaved and people began to get back to businesses, the United States government and even in other nations of the world gave soft landing grants and loans to small businesses in their countries to be able to cushion the effect of COVID-19, open up their businesses and get back to business. business. But yes, we still have these same international communities sending money to Africa, sending money to Nigeria, funds that we could have been able to use and help, SMEs, MSMEs in Nigeria to be able to stand back and continue in business. Of course, Francis, there are several businesses that closed down during that period of COVID-19 that haven't still reopened. And then just coming out of COVID-19, we are visited with cash crunch and all kinds of things. And there are people that have, come off business. Yesterday, I was reading an article that says every day in Nigeria, at least 5 businesses are closing down. Now, if at least 5 businesses are closing down in Nigeria, that's just to even put it very lightly. We could even say every day in Akwa Ibom State, for instance, or every day in some states, 5 businesses are closing down. It is further increasing the number of persons that we are, the number of out-of-job persons that we are having in the country. How is this now, affecting the quality of life that people are living in the overall? But yet, grants will come in, for people to be able to use and help themselves. And we just have a selfish bulk sitting over the public funds of the country. And we are not even saying that corruption is a thing that is peculiar to Nigeria. It just looks like the way we are greedy, our own style of corruption is really insensitive. Why not use a larger chunk of that money to satisfy the need where it was sent for, other than, we just have these people stealing away the monies. And you're going to see now, when they appear before the House of Representatives, they're going to start giving you all kinds of cock and bull explanation for what happened to 447 billion. And we're not even talking 447,000 naira or 447 million naira. We're talking in billions of naira here. If it would be judiciously used, we would have had a lot more Nigerians benefiting from this kind of venture. But we really do need an explanation. But let's go to the flip side. After the House of Reps calls in these people to probe them, what usually happens beyond these probes? Because we're just going to have information of this initial probe. First of all, if they do not appear, then we will hear that they refuse to appear. Now, when they appear and you probe, when you find the loopholes, what exactly does the House of Rep do, to make sure that we can regarner these monies or take it on from wherever it is saved up, and take it back and invest in the purpose for which it was meant in the very first place? Transparency is a core issue in the fabric of how governance and institutions in Nigeria have been run, and that's something that needs to be executed, something that needs to be checked just beyond probes. Let's see how we can get money for a particular venture and do it. Some of those people now are big boys and girls. They bought houses all over the country, send their children abroad, but that is the money that was sent for the collective growth of people. What happens to us being a forward-thinking nation where we actually put policies and reforms that will move Nigerians forward? It was yesterday that we had the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, just saying that Nigeria and Africa as a whole should not be running the kind of democracy that we run, because it is borrowed from the West and it does not give room to take the ample voice of everybody. It is not taking in the collective ideas of Africans and Nigerians into governance. So it's just the voices of a select few, and we need to do this. Now that cuts across every other thing that we do in Nigeria. We need to look for a way that we are transparent with African and Nigerian oriented solutions for Nigerian problems, and transparency is a major problem for us in this country. The House of Reps should probe, where is the 447 billion naira? Where did it go? What exactly did they do with it? Where are the results? How many businesses did we have affected by the fact that we had 447 billion sitting somewhere? Who and who? What kind of businesses? What households were able to bounce back after the COVID-19 era because of these funds?
Well, yeah, I think it's a serious matter that Nigerians will tell you will not go away anytime soon unless we have people who are a lot more sincere, people who are a lot more patriotic, people who are a lot more people-focused and people-centered when it comes to leadership, when it comes to development, rather than favoring their pockets and the pockets of their cronies and people around them. I recall as that just after the COVID-19 era, I was within a government employ, and one of the offices very close to mine was that of the multilateral and donor agencies in Akwa Ibom State. I know there were a lot of social investment scheme, the registration of businesses, free registration of businesses. There was a move to help MSMEs to be able to pay salaries of their staff or commend the salaries of their staff, and a lot of those things. Most of us who had businesses, currently at that time, went, registered, filled those forms. And guess what? Of the multitude of MSMEs who went out to fill those forms, barely a handful of people were able to receive that money. Barely a handful. And then you ask questions. Before this money were budgeted for, before the filling of forms and the submitting of details of the respective companies or businesses that was called for, the money was budgeted for. And then, of course, for each state, that money was released across the different states of the federation. So how is it that, in some states people got it, in some states people didn't get, in some states, you had a significant number of persons getting in, so other states you didn't have a good number of people getting it. It boils down to the same question that you've raised this morning: accountability and transparency. And that is one thing that is lacking in the Nigerian government. That's the one thing the Nigerians will tell you is more or less about mouth service being given to it by different administration, different government functionaries. And until we get to that point, which of course is also dependent on Nigerians, I think we as Nigerians, we are not doing enough in terms of holding people who have been entrusted with these responsibilities accountable. Because there's still no reason why you register for a government grant, a government soft loan or initiative, and then details are taken, monies are paid, and then you don't get yours, and then you don't take a step. But then, of course, we cannot blame the Nigerian people, because when you're talking about holding government officials accountable, the last resort is going to be the law court. And when the Nigerian people don't even have confidence in the fact that the judiciary will be able to deliver justice, give verdicts that will be in the interest of the people, or verdicts that are fair, just, and equitable, then it goes without saying that the moment Nigerians begin to see that their rights are being infringed upon, most persons who do not have that financial muscle would literally just resign to fate and tell you, what's the need of even trying to fight these people? They have more money, they have more connection, and with a phone call, they can turn everything against you, and the case disappears. So why try to waste the little money you have that you could have used to sort out things about yourself?
Let's not even forget that part of the problem there is also the fact that when these kinds of initiatives or information about these kinds of grants come out, Nigerians are first greeted with, how sure are we that this is not fake? How sure are we that this is not people trying to, scam us with our information and all of that? Because the information is not necessarily put out there in the mainstream media. You're not going to come and hear that, the federal government received 447 billion naira international grants allocation for them to be able to help Nigerians out with COVID-19 related issues. We're not going to help that. Even if you hear that this money was sent, you're not going to hear how the federal government intends to break down that money to reach all Nigerians. So, and then some other sectors, when you hear that these monies are available, you're going to have scammers on the internet begin to build all kinds of sites and all kinds of things, and Nigerians sometimes will fall prey. You provide information, you are scammed and all of that. So, but if we have a system of transparency which includes giving the right information as and when due, and Nigerians are able to line up with this information and get their due dividend, then it will be good. But this is a probe. I am saying, beyond probes, what kinds of solutions can we get out of the House of Reps calling these people to the table at this time? But then let's just move to one final major story this morning. Looking at the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been in the African summit, of course, having discussions and basically trading ideas about businesses with, other African leaders. We see that President Tinubu has moved to woo the G20 investors at the ongoing summit of African leaders. Of course, he assured international investors from G20 nations that their money is safe within the borders of the country. Now, the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, disclosed this during a panel discussion titled Fostering Local Value Chains and Investment in Africa. He looked at the role of the German private sector at the G20 Compact with Africa Economic Conference. Of course, we are looking at how we can begin to have more foreign nations, e.g. Germany, coming into Nigeria, coming into Africa to, invest. It was the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz who called for this particular conference, and we're looking at the president highlighting, the need for investors to come in because Nigeria is a large market and is ready to leverage all its advantages to become successful. Now, we know some of the biggest questions around foreign investors coming to Nigeria is how safe is your nation for our expatriates and all of that to come in. When we come in, these conversations around the disparity between the dollar and your naira, how is it going to affect foreign direct investment in Nigeria? Let's not forget the conversation of how aviation funds have been stuck in the country because of all of these kinds of irregularity. But I think the overall with regards to this is the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu really did put forward a very strong foot to defend the fact that Nigeria is a viable source for foreign direct investment. Now, let's see. I know that he's also been clamored to be able to use his business sense so well in some of these negotiations that he has had since May 29. But let's see the direct impact of having this kinds of strong wooing to international communities. How do we see this interpreted in having more foreign businesses come to Nigeria for business operations?
Well, when you see the federal government reacting to advisories, travel advisories by foreign firms or foreign countries, it goes down to questions about possibility of an attempt to sabotage the efforts made by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu so far in bringing foreign direct investment to the country. But of course, you'd also ask a very serious question, Zoyai. How can we be sure that the move by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu are sustainable and will be able to, not just bring down the foreign investors? Let's assume the foreign investors get wooed by, the promises made by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. And of course, they come down into Nigeria. Are their security guaranteed? Will they be able to repatriate their funds? Remember, it's been months since the president, attempted to broker a deal and secure travel, movement between Nigeria and the United Arab Emirates. And of course, foreign airlines when it comes to the issue of trap funds. And we saw Festus Keyamo also making a move to make sure that, those, trap funds have been released. But so far, we're still having conversations about trap funds by, foreign companies, foreign airlines in Nigeria, which of course is more literally like a time bomb because we never can tell when those foreign agencies are going to wake up and say, okay, you know what, we've given enough time, we've had enough, there is no more going to be a negotiation or patience on our part. It's either we repatriate our funds or we shut down. And okay, so if we are making efforts to create an enabling environment, this should first and foremost be experienced, be felt by the MSMEs in the country.
Yeah.
So in our conversations with MSMEs, can the average business operator, business owner in Nigeria look up and boldly say, oh, there has been a change in the business environment in the country since Ahmed Bola Tinubu took over, the helms of affairs. The policies that has been rolled out has led to a lot of significant transformation on the ease of doing business. Let's look at the cost of diesel, for instance, which affects the cost of production. How many times have the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria screamed out in anger, screaming out the frustration of people, in the production subsector? What has been the move by the federal government? Diesel is consistently on the high. Even with the so-called what is it called again? Subsidy or so-called move by the federal government to make sure VAT is removed from diesel and other petroleum products. It is still very much high there. So you look at how much will an individual or a company spent on power, especially when we're also talking about the fact that public power is not being given to, people as it should be. So a lot of conversations need to be had. And President Ahmed Bola Tinubu needs to get past just going to war. Yes, it's a beautiful thing. Use all of the opportunity to woo investors. But while you're wooing investors, please, Mr. President, also look into the implementation of the policies that you have made. Let's see that giant stride, those landmark achievements happening within, so the people outside can see that the businesses in Nigeria are already having a field day. And from that experience, from those data they will get, they'll be further encouraged to come in. And as they come in, you consistently maintain that status quo to ensure that they stay and don't get to take their business out of Nigeria. But of course, at this point is where we'll take a short pause and head out to the news brief decks where Mary Joseph is standing by. When we come back, Rise and Shine will continue. Please stay with us.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
This was the label of Nigeria for SpectrumTv to improve on the lapses taken into account.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
This was the label of Nigeria for SpectrumTv to improve on the lapses taken into account.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum. Live from Uyo, I am Mary Joseph. We begin this morning from Nigeria's leader, President Bola Tinubu, who has explained that Nigeria's determined pursuit of German investment in targeted sectors of the economy were focused on critical growth enabling industries in energy, transportation, and electric power production, transmission, and distribution. According to a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, during Gelale, President Tinubu gave the explanation during a meeting with the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Olaf Scholz, on the sidelines of the G20 Compact with Africa Economic Conference in Berlin. Away from that, Vice President Kashim Shettima has approved the constitution of a multi-sectorial committee to drive the federal government's Human Capital Development (HCD) program. The multi-sectorial team consists of federal and state governments, donors and partners who are expected to convene every 2 weeks to review the progress of work in addressing the objectives of the HCD program. A statement signed by Shettima's Senior Special Assistant on Media and Communications, Stanley Nwocha, says at the meeting, Shettima stressed the need for governments and partners to invest in human capital development to create a workforce that is globally competitive and adaptable to the modern demands of the 21st century. In another development, the Chief of Army Staff, COAS, Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja, has declared a 3-day period of mourning in honor of late retired Major General Chris Ali. Brigadier General Onyema Nwachukwu, Director of Army Public Relations, said in a statement that late General Ali was a former Chief of Staff of Army Staff who died on November 19, 2023. According to the statement, all Nigerian armed formations and units have been directed to hoist their flags at half-mast as a symbol of collective grief and respect, adding that General Ali dedicated his life to serving the nation through the Nigerian Army with indefatigable commitment and professionalism in the defense of the nation. We head straight now to the foreign scene where opposition candidate Joseph Boakai has been formally declared the winner of Liberia's runoff presidential election. Incumbent President George Weah had already conceded on Friday night when Boakai had built an unassailable lead, but not all of the votes had been counted. National Election Commission Chairperson Davidetta Brown-Lasana announced that the president-elect won after securing 50.64% of the total votes cast, while President Weah got 49.36%. According to Boakai, he has promised to rescue the West African nation and make it a country Liberians could be proud of. And finally in sport, Ivory Coast continued their perfect start in 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers with a 2-0 away win over the Gambia in Group F. Christian Kwame put the Elephants ahead on the stroke of halftime, staring in from the middle of the box after Omar Dekita had a shot saved by Gambia goalkeeper Madi Jobe. Midfielder Kwame had struck a powerful volley against the crossbar moments before, with a follow-up effort from Brighton winger Samuel Anduigra cleared off the line. We'll have details of this and many more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine where we have Francis and Uyai on standby. Do have a wonderful morning.
Disastrous day in Lagos, Nigeria for SpectrumTv to recover from the lapses in
State and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Disastrous day in Lagos, Nigeria for SpectrumTv to recover from the lapses in
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Of course, this is still Rise and Shine. Mary Joseph just took us around the world, of course, as far as news is concerned. But in case you missed out on Rise and Shine today on Talking Nigeria, we started off with the effect of climate change on Nigerian children. Of course, UNICEF saying 100 million children in Nigeria are at risk of being exposed to different health challenges as a result of climate change. We also talked about the rumors about the planned industrial actions by truck drivers in Nigeria within the petroleum subsector, of course, and what that would mean for the petroleum products, especially as we approach the Christmas period. Of course, we also talked about the issue of accountability, where REB is moving to probe 447 billion naira COVID-19 spending by 83 ministries, departments and agencies of government, and that's scheduled to commence from the 27th of November to 4th of December. 1 week of extended probe and investigation into how the monies disbursed by government, during that period was spent. And of course, they've summoned the respective heads of finance, people within the accounting sectors of these MDAs and other offices within the MDAs that had things to do with the disbursement of the COVID-19 funds, of course, raising a whole lot of questions on the possibility and where the probe is leading so far. With the lots of probes that has happened by these National Assembly, Nigerians are expectant and still waiting for the outcome and how much, of course, will be recovered. Of course, the number of persons also that will face the full wrath of the law will be charged, prosecuted for whatever act of fraudulent transactions or involvement they must have been involved with. But this is where I take a pause. Of course, we're heading out to a Daily Spotlight, where we'll take you around the front pages of the national dailies.
Of course, Daily Spotlight bringing you information from the front pages of our national dailies. Our very first paper this morning will be the Vanguard newspaper. And the big story there says on ease in financial markets as CBN's MPC meeting fails to hold. We also have here, it can aggravate economic uncertainty, Muda Yusuf. Better a new date rather than leave it hanging, says Commercio. We also see here it would keep investors guessing, Akinloye. Market will assume policy directions of the MPC, says Chiazo. We also see here MPC has not been officially constituted, says Olatunde. It will heighten speculation, uncertainty of economy, says Oni. Not good for the economy, says Kofi. It will worsen Nigeria's macroeconomic woes, social justice group. Okay, that's a lot of apprehension right there for that meeting not holding. We also see here banks income tax rises 132% to 311 billion naira in 9 months. Details are on page 19. We also see here APC snatch, grab and run agenda inimical to democracy, says Atiku Abubakar, page 8. Presidential candidate of the PDP is not resting. We also see here economic recovery Editas confirm urges federal government to reduce deafening anxiety among Nigerians. Page 8 is where you can find details. Tinubu to German investors. Nigeria has ingredients to become modern economy. Page 25 is where you can see details of that story. Democracy has failed in Africa, says Obasanjo. Page 10. Subsidy removal. Federal government records ever 1 trillion naira monthly revenue, says Edu. We also see here it's time for political reforms, says Labour Party. Page 8. 4 days after appeal court yet to release CTC of Kano judgment, says NNPP. Page 13. We also see here Vanguard Sports, why we are stuck with Pizarro. NFF member confesses. Okay, that's really serious confession right there. You find the details, page 31, and that's all we have on the front page of the Vanguard.
Well, our next stop this morning will be the front page of the Nation newspaper. On the front page of the Nation, the major stories, the keeper there says Tinubu to Siemens, speed of investment in power, rail. President wars Germany with safety of funds, economic reforms, educated workforce, others. Of course, that story is on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Retirement directive unsettles adamant police officers, page 4. Still has a story. Impeachment, appeal court rejects Ondo Assembly's fast-track request. The story is on page 27. We say we are committed to transparency, says Lagos Procurement Agency, page 26. Of course, a rumble in Federal Civil Service over permanent secretary promotion examination. Stories on page 6. Presidency tackles Atiku over claim on court verdict. Page 4 still has a story. Subsidy removal takes monthly federation account inflow to 1 trillion naira. Story still on page 4. Osun Assembly CJ battle over misconduct allegation. Protesters at court. Stories on page 27. Those are the major stories on the front page of the Nation this morning.
Well, we'll move on from the front page of the Nation, and our very next stop will be the Daily Times. Looking at Daily Times this morning, the big story there says bandits besiege to Kaduna local governments. Locals allege it's a lie, doing our best, says police. Okay, farmers produce our targets. Farmers produce our targets. I beg your pardon. Residents claim. Give graphic details of attacks. My brother was killed near residence. Ex-deputy speaker. Defense Minister confident that federal government will overcome terrorism. It seems like we now have a conflict of interest with information on banditry attack in this state. So it also calls to the fact that the security agencies will need to map out and straighten out how information gets to them. Well, we also still see here on the front page of Daily Times, Rivers Assembly Speaker CP trade words over alleged assassination bid. Heavy security as Plateau APC celebrates appeal court victory. Petition against Aliyah dismissed. Page 4. Ocean Judiciary workers grill chief judge. Page 4. Nigerian Navy ship rescues drifting Cameroonian vessel. Page 4 is where you can also find the details. Rep. Falake queries lottery trust fund boards. It's like government opened this agency for you and your family. Very serious case. Page 5. The last news here on the front page of the Daily Times: electricity crisis. Obaseki to lead Delta Ondo Ekiti to repurchase shares, reorganize BEDC. But this story here on Rep. Faleke querying lottery trust fund boards. I've read some numbers of things that people are doing within this country, Francis. The likes of Governor Aliyah of Benue State set aside 2 billion naira to purchase cars for himself and some other cabinet members. And I'm seeing more of billions of naira set aside by public office holders to waste on frivolous things in this nation. And I am grossly worried where we are headed as a country.
Well, it's a serious problem. I mean, what do you expect? The National Assembly has, kick-started. The presidency follows suit. So, definitely, the governors are further being emboldened by the acts of the people at the center. We cannot expect anything else to happen. But we move to the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. We see that REPS probes 447 billion naira COVID-19 spending, summons 83 MDAs. Of course, that story is on page 2. Still on the front page of Punch this morning, Obasiki's deputy joins governorship race, plans campaign. Page 7 has that story. An interesting twist there coming from Obasiki's deputy. Of course, any suspends World Bank's arbitration on OPL 245 dispute. Page 26 has a story. Presidency fumes, tackles Obasanjo over democracy comment. Stories on page 7. Tinubu was G20 investors if AAC meets over multiple taxation. Now, and this still goes back to the conversation of a business environment, how friendly and how great it is. Israel hammers women, children carry war burden. Families have weight hostages. Those are the major stories on the front page of Punch this morning.
Moving away from the Punch newspaper, our very next paper will be The Nation. Big story there says Tinubu to Siemens speed up investment in power. Okay, we've taken that. Oh, sorry. Let's go to the Daily Trust. Daily Trust, I beg your pardon. Daily Trust, big story there says Western democracy not working for Africa, says Obasanjo. When you hear that someone is angry with him for making these statements, where's the lie? Is Western democracy working for Africa? Well, we see Nigerians gradually losing faith, says Atiku. No trust between leaders, followers, says Fayemi. Politicians' attitude, the problem, says Lamido. Ex-president lacks moral ground to pontificate on democracy, says CISLAC. Well, we like sentiments in our country. We also see here reps go up to 83 MDAs every 184 billion naira COVID-19 fund mismanagement. Okay. Full furore over vacancies, appointments of federal perm sex. Plots to remove me targeted at Kwankwase's vision, says Kano governor. We also see here subsidy removal. Federal government records every 1 trillion naira monthly revenue inflow. Where is it going to? We also see here Sanwo-Olu under fire, every 118 million naira vegetables. Tinubu's portrait. Okay. We also have 110 million Nigerian children at risk of climate change. UNICEF. Of course, a report that we've squarely looked into this morning, why Niger withdrew MNJTF troops from border with Nigeria. And these are all the stories on the front page of the Daily Trust.
Of course, that takes us to a very last paper this morning, and that will be the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. On the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, the major story there, we have Western liberal democracy not working in Africa. Obasanjo, page 14, has the story. Of course, you also see economic recovery. Editors Confab warns federal government to reduce deafening anxiety among Nigerians. There is on page 17. Impeachment, Akredolu, Aiyedeti, why supporters plan protest in Ondo State. Page 16 has a story. Highly educated workforce, Nigeria's biggest advantage. Tinubu tells investors in Germany. That story is on page 8. Subsidy removal. Federal government records over 1 trillion monthly revenue inflow. As according to Wale Edu. Of course, 110 million children in Nigeria at risk, more vulnerable to climate change. That's according to UNICEF. Those are the major stories you find on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And that takes us to the end of Delhi Spotlight for today. A whole lot of stories there to read up and pick up on the front pages of our national daily. So this is where we'll take a short pause and go on a short timeout. When we do return, we will be returning with our guests and we'll be looking at a plethora of issues. Just stay with us.
Welcome back and thanks for still being there. This is still Rise and Shine, the Tuesday edition coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Of course, on Rise and Shine, we discuss topics and issues of national relevance. We also touch light on other issues affecting the world as it directly impacts on Nigeria, political issues, social-oriented issues. And of course, we do like whenever you engage with us on some of these issues, taking advantage of our social media platforms, all of which you can find at SpectrumTv Live. We also love the fact that you take advantage of our phone lines, often displayed on our screen, to send us WhatsApp messages, call in and make your contributions. At this time, we'll be joined by Franklin Otwekong, who is the chairman of CRAN, Akwa Ibom State. Of course, we'll be discussing a plethora of issues, mainly two issues this morning. The fact that CRAN and SERAP, other agencies in Nigeria, have moved to sue President Bola Ahmed Tinubu over partisan appointment of resident electoral commissioners in the country. We're also looking at the fact that there has been some serious conversation around inconsistencies with regards to how appointments are being made in the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Also a big issue for discussion this morning is the fact that state governments are moving to open security vote accounts with the Central Bank of Nigeria. Good morning, Franklin Otwekong. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, yeah. Good to be with you today.
Good to have you here. How is the city of Uyo this morning? We see that Hamatan is already settling in and looks like Christmas is locking away somewhere in the corners.
Do you know, I was just wondering why yesterday the sun was very harsh. At the golf course, we are finding it difficult to, continue our game because the sun was very harsh, and just remind me that reminds me that we are now in Harmattan season. The weather is very, very, very harsh, but it's good. The sun is already set, and we hope that we'll survive it. So we can say welcome Harmattan season.
Okay, welcome Hamatan season. So we have two strong issues. Let's start with, CRAN. Because we also know that CRAN was one of the first, agencies to have sued or brought to the attention of the president and the presidency the irregularities around the appointment of resident electoral commissioners. Why do you think, on behalf of CRAN, that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is being partisan in these activities?
First off, it is even good to know what is CRAN. CRAN simply means Center for Human Rights and Accountability Network. So that gives you the acronyms, CRAN. All we do here in our center is to protect the fundamentals of democracy, is to protect the fundamentals of human rights, is to ensure that our democracy that we fought for is not being truncated by politicians, either by their actions or inactions. And so when we see undemocratic tendencies and undemocratic actions, it is our duty as the watchdog to raise the alarm. So what we did when the appointment of our brother and others that we perceived to have fallen short of the constitutional provisions was to raise the alarm that the appointment of our illustrious son, our brother, who has saved our state judiciously from almost all levels and risen to the top, did not meet the requirement of our constitution. So on the 30th of October, we did a press conference when we told the world that the appointment of Mr. Tekamba Umoren as the resident electoral commissioner, INEC, does not meet the requirement of the law. That when you look at section 156 sub 1 of our constitution, he is disabled. That provision has disabled him, has disqualified him from being in the commission called INEC, because that provisions, simply bar anybody who is a politician, anybody who is a card-carrying member of a political party to be in the commission. So his position, his appointment as the INEC rec did not meet the requirement of the law. And so what we did on the 30th of October was to do a press conference alerting the public and also drawing attention of the Senate and Mr. President that the appointment should be withdrawn. But surprisingly, while that was done on the 30th, a day after we got an alert that the names had been forwarded to the Senate, I and my team, we are in Abuja. We filed a petition before the Senate. We alerted the Senate with evidence on oath that Mr. Tega Momoren does not meet the requirement of the law, in line with what the law says he should be to be appointed as INEC rec. And so he should be disqualified. And that his appointment will make the commission to be partisan, will make Nigerians to further lose confidence in INEC. We have already lost confidence in INEC. INEC has lost the credibility. And so why further do things that will further, cripple the commission? You saw the outcome of the runoff election, what happened, the complaints from Imo State, the complaints from Bayelsa, the complaints from Kogi, and the rest. And so we don't want this to continue. And what do? We said that those perceived, those known partisan persons, partisan individuals, who are already current member of a political party should not have any business in INEC, which is the referee. It's like you are having a football match, to be played, and someone from your own family who is, has been appointed to come and referee the match, he will always favor you. Now, given that he doesn't favor you, you work hard and you emerge the winner. The public perception will be that because your brother or because your family member is the referee, that is why you won the match. And so we don't want this blame to continue. We don't want this commission to further lose its confidence. So we now propose that his appointment should be stepped down in the Senate. But the Senate went ahead without even sending the names to Senate committee to look into the screening and look into our petitions. Declared the individual on the committee of the whole. And this was very strange. Questions were not even raised as regards to our petitions that he does not meet the requirement of the law. So he was cleared along with 3 others that we also know have a similar disability. And when this was done, we left with no option than to ask Mr. President to withdraw the appointment. The president has nothing to lose. I've said here over time that Mr. President is an activist in government. I can tell you the role President Bola Ahmed Tinubu played during the June 12th that was nullified. I can tell you the role he played in bringing about democracy today. He was the only person that was left in the AD. And AD remained in the West, in the Southwest. The all other states where you had AD defected to the ruling party then, the PDP. He was still, dogged. He was still steadfast. And so his actions today is undemocratic and, if allowed, could truncate our democracy. So that is why we had gone to court to say it on oath that our brother does not meet the requirement of the law and should be disqualified, and his name be dropped. He is qualified to be appointed into any other position. He is fit to hold any office in the federal at the federal level. But for God's sake, when you are appointing someone, you must look at the criteria marshaled out by the law. If we are a country being run by the rule of law and the principle of democracy, then you must not appoint someone who is active party member, someone who was chief of staff to a governor, someone who later became secretary to the state government to a governor, someone who later defected from the PDP to the APC, someone who later was appointed as chief of staff to the minister of a Niger Delta affair, someone who has become a member of the national delegate of APC that went to the APC convention to vote. He does not qualify to the office of the INEC that will be an umpire that will referee the forthcoming polls.
So this is a serious problem, and it goes beyond a Tekamba Moran in Akwa Ibom State. It covers other wrecks, in other states of the country. We have also seen these various states move and ask for the withdrawal of these persons. But it's more like the president is at this time rewarding loyalty of some sort to himself and to the APC with some of these critical positions. And the question of how healthy this is for our democracy is the next biggest question. When we have people that are compromising because of their positions and, partisan activities, in the overall 2027, it is going to affect the quality of elections that we have in these various states. Mr. Franklin, this morning, what do you think is... are you seeing any kind of underlying activity by the APC just to drive pegs into the ground ahead of the 2027 elections for itself and the APC at this time? Would you think that this is informing some of these activities? And I think a larger chunk of this blame is also coming to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's advisors. Who are the people that are speaking into the ears of the president and asking him to do these things that are clearly unconstitutional? Would you say we are having a problem with the inner circle of the president at this time?
I read a report this morning by former President Olusegun Obasanjo that the Western democracy is not working in Africa.
Yeah.
And I will toe this line of argument that he is correct. He is correct because even the Western world is surprised at the way we are practicing democracy, which we borrowed from them. It is only in Nigeria that you'll be hearing of election that is being held and everybody will go to court. Everybody will now depend on what the court will say. Look at what happened in Liberia. George Weah, before the result was even announced, accepted defeat and called the winner. It's only in Nigeria here that you will hear after elections, but as the poll is going on, the other party is compiling his suit, his matters that will be filing before the court. It is only in Nigeria here. That is why the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, is in order to allude or to assert that the Western democracy is not working in Nigeria, in Africa. And Nigeria, as the largest democracy, largest economy, should be the benchmark, should be the benchmark, should be the example. Is Nigeria a good example of democracy? The answer is no. Even him, the former president Obasanjo, when he was in government, he tried to change the constitution to make it to have a third term. This is what you have in virtually all the countries that you have coup today. You have in Guinea, Mali, and the rest. Look at it. Those who are presidents there, who sit in office, must have done one thing or the other to truncate the democratic principles in the country. Corruption, rules supreme. Anti-democratic tendencies, activities, nepotism, tribalism, corruption, and breach of the rule of law is what you find in these African countries where you have coup. So I'm happy that the former president has made this statement. Now, having said this, back to your question, I see a drift. I see a drift from democratic principles in the Nigerian context. I see the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu trying to make Nigeria to become a one-party system, which is unhealthy for democracy. You are trying to stifle at the opposition. Look at what happened in Imo State. I was here to discuss with you over the Imo State issue where the Labour president was beaten. Look at what happened there before the poll. You cannot find a single poster of the opposition party in the state, anywhere in the state. They were not allowed to have rally or campaigns. They were muzzled out. And this is the party that is in the center. You find where the law enforcement agency are working with the state. Even the police had to go and do a seminar or a workshop, a conference in Imo State to campaign for the governor to say that the state is safe. There is no security challenge. Why didn't they go and do the police summit in Zamfara, where our core members have been kidnapped and they are still in the hands of the kidnappers? Why didn't they go and do it in Benue? Why must it be in the Imo State when you have elections in a few days? That is the point we are saying. And you saw what happened after the polls. The governor won 100 over 1%. He won even he got even more than excess.
Of course, we're speaking with Otuekon Franklin this morning, and we're looking at issues bordering on the appointment of resident electoral commissioners by the president. We have seen civil society organizations move to sue, alleging partisanship, and the president and the presidency appointing those that are loyal to his government. And this, we know, is standing against everything constitutionally right where democracy is concerned. But of course, one of the biggest questions also coming out of the February 25 election, the March 18 election petitions that we have seen so far in the country is what now is the fate of the electoral procedures that we have had in the country. All of the electoral laws that were set in place before the February 25 election, will these laws still stand sacrosanct? Because we have seen even the judiciary, we've seen interpretations make a mess of an electoral law, an electoral act that was once celebrated to be a hope of a new face of democracy in Nigeria. We do not know if the network is going to allow us to have a concluding conversation with Otuekon Franklin, who is the chairman of Center for Humanitarian Rights Association in Nigeria, of course, the Akwa Ibom State chapter, CRAN. We've been looking at the impact of these kinds of activities on the democracy of the country. He's rightly alluded the speech of the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, who has said that Africa and Nigeria needs to play into having an Afrocentric democracy, stating the fact that the dependence on the Western style of democracy is not necessarily working for Africa because it does not meet the basic need of the governmental needs of the African continent. But I think that Otuekon Franklin raised a really strong issue this morning. The likes of Olusegun Obasanjo, who is asserting these things currently, is one of the presidents in Africa who tried to change the constitution in his favor. Would we say that he has learned from his mistakes and is just trying to stand, in an older scheme to say, okay, these things are not right? We keep on having African leaders trying to twist the constitution in their favor. But what exactly do we mean by having an Afrocentric democracy? What will that really look like at this time? We've also seen suggestions of militocracy as a thing that may favor Africa, but we're having lots of conversations for and against these opinions in the country at this time. Network seems to be standing in the way, and we are almost out of time. Okay, sorry about that. Network seems to be a serious problem, so we have barely 2 minutes. I'd like for us to just leave that whole conversation on the rec appointment. We know that it's something we need to come back on, because I think I was trying to reiterate when you were not here, the Electoral Act of 2022, where does this stand now in the face of all of the realities that we have seen after the February 25 and March 18 election? Do we actually have an electoral act that is usable in this country? We've literally seen the whole process make a mess of it.
I just think the Electoral Act 2022 is overstretched and has so many pitfalls and need a total review and reform. What I think going forward is, let there be a complete overhaul of our electoral system. Let's even have electoral crime commission. I have not seen, for instance, apart from the INEC rec that is being tried, I think in one of the northern states, in Taraba also, that announced the results without allowing the official that ought to have announced it. I have not seen any INEC official being, after the matter is decided in court, being made to face the wrath of the law. I have not seen any. I want to believe that if we begin to make INEC be accountable, change the laws and make it such that it is not he that has that must prove, as the case is now, but we allow INEC after each election to be the one to come before the court to present. You sue INEC, let INEC be the one to come to the court to present all materials. If INEC is as it is now, if INEC is always a defendant, INEC will always be standing with whoever that has won, and INEC will be denying you, the complainant, access to materials. Take it, for instance, INEC is the examiner, set exams, and then you are now challenging him before a body that he is also a member. He will just deny you every material that he used to take the exam. But if you make it such that INEC will be made to come to present the scorecard, whatever he has, how he arrived at declaring someone the winner. When that is done, you are now going to be making INEC to be accountable. But when you now say INEC, when your election is won, you now sue the winner, you now join INEC. INEC now takes side with the winner. Whatever the winner says, INEC will stand with the winner. And then they will be working hand in hand. INEC will make budget of 2 billion, 3 billion to defend the winner. And then you are just the complainant. You find it difficult to prove your case. And the law is such that it has said he that has that must prove. How do you prove your case when INEC is working with the one that he has declared as the winner? It's when you now make it such that
it's a serious problem.
INEC come and present your report before the court. The true winner emerge. As it stands now, INEC and the court has become our democratic institution, which is wrong.
It's a very serious problem.
In fact, someone said this, that we are now having a judiciocracy.
It's a serious problem.
Judicial crisis.
It's a serious problem. We continue to have all kinds of names to explain the irregularities that we're seeing. But also, I think we are going to have to whisk you in very early tomorrow morning to talk about the issue of having state governments creating a separate account for themselves. We can't take it this morning because we are absolutely out of time. We hope we can squeeze you in very early tomorrow morning just to look at that, about the opening of this designated account for state governments. But I must say a big thank you to you for coming and speaking on the issue bordering on the reg matters this morning. Thank you very much for coming on Rise and Shine.
My pleasure.
All right, then.
Good to be with you.
We'll definitely have a tweak on Franklin return tomorrow morning, so just so we can look into the issue of these designated accounts. But that's the much we can take on Rise and Shine this morning. Until we return to your screens tomorrow, I remain Uyai, and you can have a blessed day. Bye-bye.